Well, we've been talking about it. House lawmakers set to vote on Speaker Johnson's short-term government funding bill this afternoon. President Trump, we know, has been urging Republicans who are navigating an extremely narrow majority in the House to support this bill, even threatening to primary Congressman Massey of Kentucky, who so far is the only Republican who is committed to voting against the bill. Joining me now is Republican Representative from Tennessee, Tim Burchett, who has yet to say how he plans to vote on this stopgap bill. Congressman, we appreciate you making some time today. I know it's a busy day for you. The House is about to take up this CR now. How do you plan to vote?
I'll make that call here just in a little bit. I had a nice long conversation with the president. I spoke with the speaker. Talked to Pete Hedge this weekend. My major concern has been this: are we going to reduce the size of government? And ultimately, this is the first time in 7 years since I've been in Congress that we've actually reduced the size of government and the spending. I wish we could pass a real budget. Nobody seems really fired up about that. Over 30 years, we haven't passed a real budget. And I'm concerned about the DOJ cuts. Are we going to be able to make those into law? Are we going to have the guts to do it? Or are we just going to talk about it? So those are a lot of things I'm in heavy conversations with right now.
Well, I was going to say, I'm assuming that when you're done with us, you're probably going to need to head back to the floor and get ready to make this vote actually happen. Have you not actually decided yet, or are you just not willing to share that with us? What's going to be the thing that gets you to where you need to be on how you vote?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Ultimately, I pray about these things. I'm a Christian. I'm not a very good one, but I try to pray about all these things. And I'm just trying to figure out if this is what we need to do. And, one of the things I was concerned about was the cuts in Medicaid and Medicare, and there are none. As a matter of fact, we're following this up with things that will shore it up and actually will cut out the waste, abuse, and fraud in that, and then allow for more money for that. And I kind of don't like the fact that some people are using this to scare folks, and it's wrong. And that was one of my concerns. But, of course, my other concern is the spending at the Pentagon. We just can't seem to get out of our way they did not pass the last NDAA, the audit for the National Defense Authorization Act. And they haven't passed an audit in 8 audits, and they're so dadgum arrogant, they don't even finish the audits. So, it doesn't matter who's in the White House, they always seem to spend more money over there. And I'm very anxious, and that was one of the commitments I had from President Trump just an hour or so ago, is that we are, in fact, DOJ is going to look at the Pentagon, and they are going to go in there. And I got a feeling the waste, abuse, and fraud will be very extensive, and some people will be heavily embarrassed.
Well, you mentioned the fact that you spoke with the president about this. Can you characterize your conversation with him a bit more? Did you get a sense that there is pressure on the Republican conference to really fall in line here?
Well, I think the president realizes that in our conversations, he never pressures me. He never threatens, a primary. He never even curses at me. We just have and the one thing about Trump that I think people would find unusual, especially your viewers, is that when he doesn't know the answer to something, he gets me that answer. He either finds out himself or he has somebody get in touch with me almost immediately. And I find that very refreshing, because in the past I've been lied to by a lot of leaders on both sides of the aisle, and I realize that's part of this game up here. But Trump, I've been giving him every opportunity here in the last few votes to lie to me, and he hasn't done it yet.
You have opposed previous stopgap bills like this. In this instance, it seems like you're maybe a little more open. Why is this one different for you? Why are you open to the idea of voting for this short-term bill when you haven't been in the past?
Because it actually reduces spending, several $1 billion, and I realize 20, 30, 40 $billion in Washington, D.C. They've wasted that since you and I started this conversation. But in Tennessee, that's a whole heck of a lot of money, and dadgummit, people are tired of paying into this, and they're seeing the waste, abuse, and fraud. And I think that this is the first opportunity, at least since I've been here, to actually reduce the amount of spending. And if you take inflation into that, it's even considerably more. And that's something the president and I talked about, too, is inflation and what's going on with our country. And that is something he is incredibly concerned about as well.
It wasn't long after Speaker Johnson became Speaker back in 2023. He said he was done with short-term CRs. And since then, we know that Congress has passed, 5 CRs, not including the one that you may or may not vote on today. Do you still trust Speaker Johnson to keep his word when he says he's going to cut government spending?
Well, he has on this one. He has definitely cut spending on this one, and people are upset about it. He's cut out pork going back home, and folks are upset about that. And I think that sends a clear message that we're $36 trillion in debt, and we have got to do something about it. And the Democrats are claiming we're going to shut the government down. Well, back when they were in control, they were accusing us of trying to shut the government down. It doesn't go both ways. This is just a political game, and they're just trying to, apply the maximum hurt to the maximum amount of people that will yell the loudest, and it's just not working anymore for them. And I think that's why Trump won with the numbers that he did.
I want to play something for you here. Yesterday, there was an interview on Fox Business that Elon Musk did where he teased cuts to entitlement programs. Take a listen to this, if you will, sir.
The waste report in entitlement spending, which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. So that's like the big one to eliminate.
So Elon Musk there made clear that he wants to target entitlements in some way or another. How do you make sure those cuts are not impacting people who really rely on the benefits that we're talking about here?
And that is a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because this morning in one of our oversight subcommittees, I actually asked the question of that, and I was one of my Democrat colleagues said that the amount is just very small, very small. And then I said, what percentage is it? And they said 7 to 8%. And they said it's $150 billion plus dollars that we know of. And this was the bureaucrat that was in these agencies that was telling us this. So, and then it was just because they have a voluntary system almost of accounting, and that some of the bureaucracies don't even follow that. And I'm drawing up legislation currently now that to make it mandatory, because if they're admitting there's $150 billion, and this is somebody that works for the federal government that they think is in waste, abuse, or fraud, then I can guarantee you there's more. And also, my point is this: if we make those cuts, if we're able to streamline the delivery system and get rid of the waste, abuse, and fraud, we can send that money back to the people who are so very deserving.
I do want to ask you, before I have to let you go here, about some other big news of the day. President Trump said that he was going to double the tariffs that he would impose on Canadian steel, on aluminum, up to 50%. We know the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, says that will not be happening now at that level. Are you in any way concerned about the impact this kind of volatility could have on the U.S. economy?
It's short term, but we ought to be making those materials and things in this country. And there's no reason in the world that Canada should have any say-so in any of our energy production, and they currently sell to some places on the border. I just think that is a dangerous situation to be in. The same way with lumber. We ought to be cutting it in this country. And what they've done is they put these environmental laws on us that we think are backed by the environmental community, when in fact it's our competitors overseas and in other countries that are pushing. If you dig deep enough, that's who we find out is supporting these things and have hired the lobbyists, so that in fact it makes it too expensive to get our lumber or steel or what have you in this country, and then we have to go overseas or to another country like Canada. So in effect, I think it's a great thing. In the short term, there's going to be some problems, but long term, America is going to benefit greatly and be more independent.
All right, so we will have to leave it there for now. Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee, we appreciate you making some time for us on a busy day here. Thanks so much.
Thank you. That is a great tie, by the way, you're wearing.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.